Well, thank you for joining today's webinar. Give me one more minute and we'll get rolling. This is Rich Fox. We're here to join Evolve IP in a call center metrics that matter most 24-minute webinar. I'm going to give everyone just one more minute to hear the more beeps joining, and we'll get rolling. All right, well, thank you for joining. My name is Rich Fox. This session will be recorded. You are viewing our Call Center Metrics That Matter Most webinar. It will be recorded. You'll receive a link via email to play back that recording, and we'll also include just produced our copy of our ultimate guide to call center metrics that matter most, which will cover all these key points and have a lot of the graphics and takeaways. And so you'll get that within a day or so. All phones will be muted during the webinar. We will unmute the lines at the end of the presentation for questions. My name is Rich Fox. I run the contact center practice at Evolve IP. I've been in the business for many years, both from a technology and operations perspective. I've run very large call centers, been responsible for technology for very large call centers, and now I have the pleasure of providing call center technology to many customers and prospective customers. So I love call centers. This is the business I'm in, and I'm all about taking technology and adding business value. So with that said, let's get rolling here. So what we're going to talk about today, we're talking about metrics. So there's lots of metrics out there, but which ones matter most? We're going to talk a little bit about what do callers want from your organization, talk about ways to measure the customer experience. We'll talk about some of the key metrics when looking at agent performance. We will talk about some caveats around that which is measured, gets managed, but there's a flip side of that coin, and then a balancing act. So when can you have too much of a good thing from a call center perspective? So there are many, many goals for a call center. Some of those metrics are captured via the ACD or the phone system. Others require additional systems or processes to collect data, and others require to marry up data from multiple systems to give you a holistic picture. So what are the key sources of data in the call center? One is the ACD or the phone system, so your traditional metrics around service level and speed of answer and abandon rate and all the metrics you look at from a phone perspective. We have business drivers. These typically are the core functions of an organization or the call center, and it revolves around the business transaction. They're often combined with that ACD information to give more value. So for instance, common ones are things like cost per call, revenue per call, average call value, sales conversion rates, cross-sell percentages, and things along those lines. And what happens is our customers often marry up phone data with these other business systems to produce these insightful metrics. Next category is quality management. So this typically involves a very conscious and consistent effort to review each agent's customer interactions, grade them, provide coaching and feedback, and operates continuously to improve agent performance. These evaluations typically include customer service skills, product knowledge, system expertise or usage, and various efficiency and effective measures that create an overall call quality score on a call-by-call basis for agents. Customer and employee satisfaction, the ultimate measure has had a lot of prevalence and high visibility is the Net Promoter Score. So, hopefully a happy employee results in a happy customer. These metrics are often captured via surveys, can be post-call surveys, can be other forms such as email or web-based surveys, but either way, it's getting that feedback from the customer and the employee back into the call center for continuous improvement. And the last big chunk of data in the call center we look at is workforce management. So for those customers that have deployed a workforce management solution, the kinds of metrics that the customers look at are things like forecast versus actual volume, scheduled staff versus actual staff, agent adherence to schedule, forecast accuracy, and things along those lines. We have customers using various tools here like IEX or Monet for that forecasting, scheduling, and real-time adherence, and that gets fed that data both historical and real-time right from the phone system. So those are your key buckets, if you will, or categories of metrics. So, where do we begin? So let's talk about what your callers really want from you, but let's do that by looking at what they don't want from you. So, from a customer's perspective, answer my interaction quickly, and by quickly I mean right away. Otherwise, it just feels like I'm waiting forever. I want to speak with a knowledgeable, friendly person that can help me, empathize with me, tell me they can help, and provide me accurate information. Resolve my inquiry on the first call. Please, please, please don't have me chasing my tail like this guy here. Don't transfer me to 14 different departments to tell my story over and over. And finally, follow through on your committed actions. Make it happen. Do what you say. Don't let me fall through the cracks. So, how do you measure the customer experience to ensure these things don't happen to your callers? So strictly from the call center ACD, there's only a couple key metrics that you need to worry about to judge your call center's performance. And really answering the question of, did you answer the callers quickly? Service level. This is calculated by taking the number of calls you received within your goal, typically say 20 or 30 seconds are very common goals with our customers, and dividing it by the number of calls received. This is indicative of the percent of callers that were answered within your organization's goal. Common goal is answer 80% of the calls within 20 seconds. So, my goal is throughout the day to get 80% of those callers answered within 20 seconds. But one thing I'd recommend is you look at this by interval, not as an average across the day. In other words, what percent of the intervals did you hit your service level goal? That way you ensure the customer experience is consistent throughout the day. What I've seen in many call centers is the first hour or two or the last hour or two has really poor results, since that's where the minimum amount of staff is online. But during the middle of the day, when all the shifts are in the office, then the results are phenomenal, which gives you an overall great result for the day. But if you were one of those callers at the very beginning or very end of the day and you waited on hold for 10 minutes, you probably wouldn't consider that a great experience, even though the overall average for the day may have said most people waited a few seconds. So in my mind, my recommendation, that's why you should look at service level across all intervals of the day, since that daily result can be misleading. Average speed of answer, so that's the other key one many customers look at. This is calculated by taking the total amount of time callers waited divided by the number of calls that came in. I consider this a substitute for service level because, again, it's an average. You may have gotten my sense I don't love averages. Because it's an average, it's misleading. Many callers get answered before the average, and many wait far longer than the average. So take a look at this red and blue graph here. Blue bar represents the average speed of answer for the day, while the red bar represents individual callers' waits. So if your call center goal is that 80-20 service level, what you'll find is your typical average speed of answer might be 15, 17 seconds in that neighborhood. However, that's because many of the calls are answered right away, so the actual wait is 0 seconds, and many callers waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to get answered. So that maybe 15 or 17 second average really doesn't represent a true picture of the experience. That average, especially when you have a lot of very low numbers and a good number of very high numbers, they average out to look great. So I consider an average speed of answer more of a fallback position from service level, since it's really not as clean and indicative of the customer experience than service level. And the third one people look at are answer rate and abandon rate. And abandon rate is simply the inverse of answer rate. I consider these metrics to be secondary to service level and average speed of answer, and more a byproduct of staffing lined up to handle the incoming call volume. And many times I find the abandon rate is more indicative of caller behavior more so than call center performance. And you really have far less control over this stat. I look at it, I don't necessarily judge by it. It's not black and white like average speed of answer or service level, nor can you build service staffing models to achieve an answer rate or abandon rate per se. So there are many agent metrics people like to look at in the call center, and that are indicative of agent behavior that they're used to coach or mentor, your staff to improve their performance. However, there's lots and lots of metrics. Which ones should you manage to? Which are informational? And which ones, should you avoid? So, there are many agent metrics, as I mentioned. In Rally, there's only a few that you should truly judge your agent's performance by. The first two here impact the caller expectations we discussed earlier, while the last one ensures the agent is performing the right activities at the right time. So call quality. This typically comes from the quality monitoring performed by supervisors or a separate QA team, and looking at those things I talked about earlier. So if your agent is wowing your customer, is excelling at your quality monitoring objectives like customer service skills, product knowledge, system expertise, then in my mind, haven't they achieved nirvana? They're professionals on the phone, they build rapport with the customer, they give them accurate information, they log everything into the system correctly, they move efficiently through the call. These are the things that an agent can control, on a call-by-call basis. And since ultimately the agent's handling that call is one of the key factors in caller satisfaction, and this is where you should focus heavily on call quality and have ongoing reviews of agent performance. You may spend more energy on your newer employees than your seasoned ones, since your more tenured agents are typically behaving in the manner you expect. And the goal of any quality initiative really is to raise the performance of all agents. So, the goal is always, imagine if you could take sort of that middle of the pack performers, the average performers, and have them operate and act like the top 10% of your agents. That would be a game changer for your call center and for you, and really a crowning achievement. So call quality. First call resolution. So again, how is it calculated? The number of calls resolved upon that initial contact divided by the total number of calls received. So this goes towards that answer my call, answer quickly, and not only that, but then have it addressed properly. Don't leave me hanging. Don't let me fall through the cracks. Don't send me through 14 different departments. Since the labor is the largest cost in any call center, and every caller wants that question resolved right away, completing more and more calls as a one and done, as I like to call them, is key to not only cost but customer satisfaction. So what our customers typically capture this information from either their CRM system or through the use of disposition codes tracked in the phone system, and this becomes a real critical component to customer satisfaction. And the third one, from an agent perspective, is schedule adherence. So this comes from the marriage of workforce management tools and the ACD information to answer the question, are my agents doing the right things at the right time? This comes from the workforce management system after it's fed real-time agent state information and compares that to an agent schedule. Are they making an outbound call when they're supposed to be available? Did they come back from lunch late? Are they available when their shift begins, or are they still grabbing a cup of coffee in the break room? If agents are following the schedule, they're doing what you asked. So now the responsibility falls back on you to make sure you're generating accurate forecasts, good schedules that line up the right number of agents to meet those service level goals. So, we have tons of metrics in the call center, and we've gotten, very good at managing our staff towards those goals. In the call center, we absolutely live by the mantra, that which is measured gets done. However, metrics aren't always delivering what we think they are. It's important to understand the interrelationship between the various metrics, and most importantly, the impact on the customer's experience. Believe it or not, an agent may not have the customer's best interest at heart. They may actually be more focused on their own success, their own wallet, or the metrics you use to motivate them. When that individual success is linked to the agent metrics, you really need to be careful. You need to understand the data and make sure you have the right checks and balances. Metrics are not necessarily the silver bullet answer that solves all the call center's challenges. In fact, sometimes those metrics may have an unintended and negative impact on your customer experience. So this really means you need to understand the cause and effect and the dependencies between a few of these metrics. So the laws of physics tell us that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, if you manage your agents with certain metrics, be careful what you ask for. For instance, if you manage your agents to an average handle time KPI, they'll hit the goal, and you may not like the reason why. As an agent's day unfolds and their average handle time is too high, well, how are they going to get it back on track? They're going to rush through customers. They're going to take some shortcut with callers so their handle time falls back in line. Yeah, wait, Rich, what do you mean? Are you telling me my agents may take actions that benefit them at the cost of the customer? No. Well, yes. I've seen agents feign a bad phone connection, terminate the call, put the customer on hold, and terminate the call blaming technology for their own metrics, to improve their own metrics. So now they've just destroyed the customer experience by hanging up on them. Now the customer's got to call back and start all over again, and that's a horrific experience and not the outcome you were looking for. Similarly, if you manage the calls per hour, you'll see agents taking similar actions to increase their calls per hour. Whoops, drop that call. Oops, that transfer failed. Oops, must be a bad connection. Seen it many, many times. So my recommendation is, instead of judging an agent by handle time or calls per hour or some other efficiency measure, consider adding some additional items to score your agents during your quality monitoring activities. Focus on the ability to control the call. Did the agent take all steps possible to complete that call in an efficient manner? Coach them on how they could have better handled the call. Not only will the agent get the proper coaching and training, they will achieve the same results, but it will ultimately drive down your average handle time in a healthy way. Whoops. So what you're telling me is, if I achieve my service level goals and answer the phone quickly, I'll improve my customer experience. Well, gee, that sounds good, but what if I exceed my goals? How about instead of, if I set higher goals? So instead of an 80-20 service level goal, how about a 90-20 service level goal? I'll get more calls answered quickly and more customers will be happy. Sounds great, right? Well, there's too much of a good thing too. Going back to laws of physics, and unfortunately, there's some opposing forces at play here too. To achieve a higher service level goal, you'll need more people on the phones. Achieving 90% of anything is tougher than achieving 80% of anything. So as we all know, it's that last 10 to 20% of results that requires so much more effort than the first 80%. That's the law of diminishing returns that applies, everywhere in our lives. So to increase my service level goals, I'll need to add more staff to the phones, plain and simple. I need to answer more calls more quickly, and staffing is the only way I'm going to get that done. Well, let's talk about occupancy. What is it? Occupancy is defined as the percent of time an agent is actually involved in call handling versus sitting in an idle state waiting for a call. So this is a function of call volume, staffing, and service goals. Some companies like to look at it and think of this as productive inbound time on the phone. So the more time agents spend on the phone, the higher their occupancy. Great, I'm getting the most out of my agents. However, if you increase your service level goals, your occupancy goes down. It's an inverse relationship. And this is one some people don't take a little while to get, but they say, what, that doesn't make any sense. So why, if my goals go up, do people spend less time on the phone? Well, you've got to add more agents to the same call volume, and therefore their occupancy decreases. Agents spend more time sitting available, waiting for that next call to answer a higher percent of the calls. So what happens is your call center's performance goes up, you've added more agents, and you're achieving higher service level goals. Your callers are happy, but your agent's occupancy goes down. They spend less time on the phone. Your overall costs go up, and agents spend less time on the phone. That's that opposite force in this scenario. You get to explain, that to your boss at the next budget review, why more agents spending less time on the phone is a good thing. So let's take that discussion one step further. We all want happy employees, and there are many reasons why an employee may be unhappy, and that's the joys of leadership. Fortunately for me, I'm only going to focus on the impact of occupancy of your agents in this webinar. So as agents spend a higher proportion of their day on the phone, the more weary they become, by the end of the day. That pace of, frenetic pace of answering dozens of calls in a day eventually gets to even the most motivated or experienced agents. Now, of course, your CFO might say, well, I'm paying them 100% of their salary, expecting to see them on the phone 100% of the day. we all know that's not practical or really remotely feasible in the call center. So as agent occupancy goes up, employee motivation and morale goes down, working off the premise that a happy employee means a happy customer. So an unhappy employee means what kind of customer? Right, not the kind you want. So an agent can't control their occupancy. What they can control are some things we talked about earlier. Their call quality, first call resolution, schedule adherence. But from an occupancy perspective, if they're doing what you ask of them, being available to take inbound calls, at the time you expect them to be available to take inbound calls, that's all they can do. They can't adjust their occupancy, because occupancy is actually a byproduct of a few factors: the amount of incoming call volume you have, the service level goals you have for your call center. So the higher service level goal, the lower occupancy is going to be. The lower your service level goal, the higher your occupancy is going to be. And the number of agents you have on the phone when those incoming calls come in. So in reality, occupancy heavily impacts your agents. However, it's completely out of their control. It's in your control. This comes back to finding the right balance of staffing and service level goals that keeps your agents engaged and productive, but doesn't lead to burnout and dissatisfaction. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Hold on one sec. You now have the ability to ask questions. To unmute your phone and ask a question, please hit *1 and then ask your question. I was trying to keep us to our 24-minute schedule. I'm doing pretty good on time. We have a few minutes for questions, so I'm happy to ask any questions. So *1 will unmute your phone, and are there any questions that I can answer for you? I wowed you all. Okay, fantastic. One more shot for any questions. *1 should unmute your phone. Should be able to talk. All right. Well, I thank you for joining our webinar, Ultimate Call Center. Your Ultimate Call Center Guide to Metrics will be, as well as an email with a link to this recording. I hope you found the webinar valuable. On the screen is my contact information if you have any further questions. And thanks again, and have a great day.
The moderator has left the conference. The conference will now end.